All right, welcome to the 7th episode of Depths of Gaming. We've made it to number 7.
Yay! Hello, comrades. How nice for you to be here. Oh, two of you.
Indeed. So we're here on the lovely day of Easter Sunday, which is the day we celebrate when Velociraptor eggs hatch. They would throw these young dinolings at the priestess in charge of the temple, who, as they would eat their flesh, would go, "Ishtar, Ishtar!" That's why we celebrate Hanukkah. So
that's how you celebrate Easter, right?
Yeah, Easter too.
I thought it was because on the Easter Monday, one day Lenin came down from heavens and gave us communism in an egg.
Oh yeah, that's right. He cracked the egg, and it went, and he just kind of sprayed that all over, and it just started leaking out. That's
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's why Master Lenin is always with us.
Yeah.
You always have to buy a bed for 3. For the wife, for the husband, and for Lenin.
Where does the kid sleep?
On the floor in the basement.
Oh yes, communism.
Yeah, the kid didn't shovel enough coal yet.
On the video games.
Yes, those exist.
If I can make... Alright. Star Wars Battlefront 2. A first look, everything we know.
Yeah, that's... why are we actually covering this game? Because didn't it came out like a decade ago?
Well, no, you see, that was Battlefront 2 just by EA. This is Battlefront 2 by DICE.
Isn't DICE owned by EA?
Well, it has a different name, so it's different. Get with the program.
Okay.
Which I can imagine is exactly what they sounded like in the pitch meeting. Is, we'll call it Battlefront 2. And then another guy was like, didn't we already make that? The other guy was like, we did it this way, shut up.
So yeah, Battlefront 2 is apparently going to happen.
Yeah, not Field, that's completely different, like 100%.
Yeah, but about completely different people are making it, so of course
Completely
they can
different.
start the numbering scheme all over again. Listen, at least I know that Final Fantasy is going into like 14s, 15s, and 16s now.
Oh yeah, they're gonna keep going.
But at least they keep it chronologically kind of consistent.
Yeah.
Battlefield is all the Western developers with their remakes, remasters, sequels, prequels,
really obsessed
sidequels.
with making the same thing over and over again, and then acting all surprised when it isn't exactly like the last thing.
Yeah.
It's like, because people usually fall in love with a little detail that they can't name, but it's what they associate that whole game with.
I blame the fact that people are not really game literate. They stick to they find that they are Gears of War, they are Battlefields, Battlefronts, and they just stick to it. And they do not venture, they do not experiment. And the same big companies are doing. They also do not reach out and experiment, because that costs money, and people do not like to spend money on something that may not return.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's quite entertaining that they do that, and yet almost always they try to have it both ways. They try to have their secret pet project that is just awe-inspiring, and then at the same time they're also trying to have this bugless giant multiplayer game that everyone can enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
And
we
now
exploring the unknown.
God damn it. Sorry everyone. You can blame the British like everything else. They're trying to make this into a movie almost, like Battlefront, with this new Battlefront 2, which is technically Battlefront 4. However, it's the second game that DICE has made under the Battlefront franchise, making it Battlefront 2. Is you play a character that is fanatically loyal to the Empire. She's drunk the Kool-Aid. She's special forces. And so a core portion of the single player is going to be as a Empire goon.
That's interesting. It's there's always so few games where you are actually the bad guy who actually believes that.
What are you talking about? You almost always play the Americans in Call of Duty. Like that's
I don't play Call of Duty.
No. I mean, like in the Call of Duty games, you're always the like an American soldier. Like we're always playing the bad guys in.
Yes, but they never called the bad guys.
But they never identify themselves as the bad guys, and it's the same thing.
Yes, but for example, in Dungeon Keeper, you know you're evil.
Oh,
you know that what you're doing is evil, but you're doing it anyway because it's so fucking fun.
Yeah.
World needs more of that. Maybe they will then wake up from the hypocrisy and come to the communist way.
And that's the whole theme here is the first half of the campaign. You're probably gonna be like, oh yeah, the Jedi are cultists and the Empire restores order to the galaxy and shit like that.
Yes.
And they also tease heavily that they're going throughout the eras with Battlefront 2, just like they did with the original Battlefront 2, is they're going to include every time period. So we're going to be able to play Republic Commandos again. We're going to be able to play the CIS again, the droids.
Yes. Is that because they want to give us variety, or because they can't really pick what they wanted to focus on?
Well, they're trying to appeal with as many people as they can with as little budget. And the thing about the Clone Wars period is it's mostly just the same thing. They use the same weapons. They use the same archetypes of soldiers almost, because the clone soldiers are just the earliest versions of the stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm. They were like stormtroopers, right?
Yeah. The clone soldiers were so good because they were mostly clones. However, it would seem that as the Galactic Civil War went on, more and more officers and people were actual like volunteers more so than clones.
Oh yeah, that Disney retcon that happened.
They did the crazy Disney retcon. Yeah.
Yeah, you fucking mouth. Go to the fucking public domain already, you stupid rodent.
Well, that was the whole purpose in squirreling away that that license was they wanted to go, okay, this will not become public domain. This is going to be our property.
Yeah, but I'm afraid that time of Star Wars is ending because of that. Because I don't think they can bring in the same magic. The movies that the prequels, the
Rogue One was really good.
Well, yes, they were really good, but when you watch the original trilogy, there is that 80s kind of magic there. That's only surrounds those
well,
kind
I feel
of
like
movies.
they nailed it because they appeal to that. In Rogue One was fairly 80s, and they're fighting on that tower, and then there's a doomsday device pointed at them. Like, how 80s is that? That's super 80s.
Well, I'm not talking about the like the particular elements that are on the screen. I'm talking more about the atmosphere.
Oh.
Because
Oh yeah, Battlefront 2 is going to have a hard time with that because it's being designed as this sleek and sexy army shooter in space.
Yes, that's basically my biggest problem with that, because the original Star Wars was this. It was magic, but with sci-fi elements. Now there is no of that. It's not fantasy anymore, right? It's basically you have the guns that go pew pew that you shoot at people. You have those powers that force those that are done by midichlorians, right? It all fell apart.
Thank you, Phantom Menace. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
What's funny is I bring up midichlorians to other people, and depending on the level of Kool-Aid, they will say either, well, yeah, but at least it's explained, or they'll say, well, they retcon that out. And of course, I've been looking at every other Star Wars property, and they reference the midichlorians, and I was like, yeah, you don't just retcon out a part of a movie line like that. Like,
Star Wars was basically like a very nice beach ball, right?
On that notion,
it's a very nice, very colorful, but then you bring in that pin that is the midichlorian. Here's the beach ball, it deflates.
The canon labelists, the guys, because with Disney, they basically went, here's what's actually real in the Star Wars universe. Here's all that other shit that's not actually canon. And they made so much not canon. They made basically every game that isn't Battlefront wasn't canon. Like they made
KOTOR not canon.
No, KOTOR's canon.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
If it's not a movie, it's not canon. The new KOTOR will be canon.
Okay, fuck you. I'm looking this up. It says Star Wars Rebels confirms Knights of the Old Republic lore is canon. It's canon.
No. I seriously thought that they threw it out.
No, they kept Old Republic because with KOTOR, when KOTOR 1 and 2 came out, and then later the MMO, it brought on a whole like group of gamers that fell in love with that part of the universe. So they went, okay, it's canon. And also it added a lot to Mandalorians, and they love jerking off over Mandalorians at Disney.
Well, of course, because we have to have the military. We have to spunk the military.
Yeah.
Oh well. So yeah, that's Battlefront. That's your new game of the year. Prepare the awards.
Just prepare the awards. It's going to be at the top of every single list for the next year.
Whether deservingly so or not.
Yeah, whether it deserves it or not. Yeah, I remember the last Battlefront. It came out, people talked about it. It came out in beta, people talked about it for a while, and then it just kind of never heard about it again. Just drowned in obscurity.
It actually reminds me of a lot of AAA games. If it's AAA, it's probably going to get a lot of people are going to buy it, regardless of whether it deserves it or not.
And this leads us into our next topic, actually.
Like Andromeda.
Like Mass Effect Andromeda. Which, even before it came out, there were PC Gamer articles saying, yeah, this game is boring. Like, holy shit. Mass Effect Andromeda tanked. Now, to be fair, I have not played it.
Same here. What I've read about it is I've read about that the plot is janky, that it basically invalidates whatever the ending you got in the third Mass Effect. It basically it has a lot of technical issues, like with the fish-eyed people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of problems with facial animations.
Yeah.
There's a lot of problem with like walking cycles, bugs.
In general, we're hearing a lot of reports of stuff that you would not expect to make it through to a AAA release.
And if you remember that it was made by BioWare's Montreal, which is a smaller team than the core BioWare developer, then that kind of makes sense. But then again, why would BioWare designate their flagship IP to a small and inexperienced team?
That is where I just don't know. And we say inexperienced for several reasons. And we're about to go into the major one right here. So this is an article that was in like IB Time. I have no idea. It's an International Business Times. So this is apparently a big name publisher, newspaper. Thingamajigger.
It's a thing on the
internet words.
Yes.
So these internet words say that Ian Frazier... Frazier? No, it would be Frazier. Frazier! I am Ian Frazier.
Let's go with that. Frazier.
No, it's Frazier.
No, it's Frazier. From now until forever, it's going to be Frazier. Like Vizier. Just Frazier.
So, we're not going to go through the entire interview because then we'd be here all day. But this interview they were mostly talking about the negative aspects of all the criticism they've got. Mm-hmm. And so this is essentially an entire article about how bad things happen to good people, and people are going to just complain. For instance, he says, as far as my personal reaction, I won't speak for the other guys, but I spent a lot of my time on Twitter, various forums. I won't lie. It's hard. It's hard seeing the criticisms, some of the challenges that are out there. That is the most PR-heavy line I've seen in quite a while. That's insane. So it's he goes, oh, it's difficult because we do want to help. And he's essentially saying that because
they're expecting me to do my job, and that's difficult.
There are mean people on the internet expecting him to actually do what his company pays him to do, which is interact with the community.
Quality control.
Bug
fixing.
That kind of stuff. And he does this, and this is the thing about EA, is they completely gave up on trying to get feedback from their communities because there's so many of them. And so they regulate it to these community managers, and they're usually these pretty interns that think because they talk hip and they can just keep talking about video games. They think that being poetic about video games is the same thing as being a company community manager. And
yes, flowery language does not community manager make.
Yeah. And you see it time and time again. I remember for a while, Microsoft had this game that was Age of Empires Online, and I remember seeing this demo, and the guy was like, "Oh yeah, you create your main city like a character, and your buildings are like your stats and your upgrades and all that." He made it sound really cool. Mm-hmm. And they had this community manager, and it's one of those ladies that was like, "I'm a female, so every time I type to someone, I'm gonna put in an emoticon to prove that I'm a woman."
And it's that the emoticon that represents the female symbol too.
They'll do like smiley faces and shit, and at the end of everything, and I love that because it's almost like it's because they get to say, "Oh, by the way, I'm right," without actually saying you're wrong.
Winking face.
Like, I included a smiley face, which means I'm making a silly face at you because you're wrong. And I'm like, "Oh, shut up, bitch! You don't know what you're talking about."
But now seriously about the community.
Now seriously about the community managers is they hire these interns. They're too busy pretending to do their job by like being friends with people and helping people out. And whenever anything bad happens, they jerk their knees really fast, and they say, "Oh well, they're mean people on the internet, and we have to make all sorts of rules, and we have to do this and that." And here's another quote from this dude, Ian Fraser. "For example, we used to rely heavily on our forums, but now we've got several channels of information coming in. You get a much larger pool because when you're limited to one channel or two, it self-selects. You're only going to get feedback from people who'll take the time to become a member of that forum or what have you. It's been nice having a broad assortment of people giving us feedback, good and bad, through channels like Twitter and Facebook." And when he says you're limiting it to a channel or two, it self-selects, he's referring to this fad that companies had for a while, where they wouldn't look at their Steam forums because every game automatically gets a Steam forum generated for them. They would only look at their official forums, and they would, whenever anyone would post anything in the Steam forums, they would have their community managers ignore it and reference them to go post it on their official forums. A lot of companies did this for the longest time. And they realized that they're cherry picking like motherfuckers.
I don't like that practice simply because it makes me make an account with EA, and that already feels like I'm big.
So Jahith works in IT, and the stereotype about IT people is they hate making accounts for anything because he knows what they can do with that data.
I don't like giving off my information, and I especially hate it when, in order to register, you have to give your you have to give first name, last name. They want you to give an address, and you can't really bullshit some of this stuff out.
No, because they can cross-reference it, and sometimes they can very easily just change it automatically, whether you know it or not.
Especially when Microsoft is going to sell all of that data, because they will with Windows 10.
Yep, they just made it legal for all of your porn searches to just link out there, and everyone knows everything about what you do.
At least in America.
So,
unless you're using tunnelware.
But remember, we're the best country in the world in every way.
Oh yes,
except
of course.
For all of the ways we're not.
That's the best part about America, and forgive me for the tangent. You came up with the technology, so you had dibs on that. You have the best.
Well, this
possible...
is an ongoing theme. Is our people spout this rhetoric that we're the best, we're the best, we're the best, and yet poll after poll, study after study, example after example, it's all bullshit.
But let me finish, okay?
Oh yeah.
You came up with the technology of the internet, right?
Yes.
You have one of the biggest possible economies on the world.
It's
right?
all centered around English. Yes.
Yes. How the fuck you do not have a standard of 600 megs or something like that, basically gigabit type of internet,
well,
for
it's
$50 a month?
The Republicans were pushing for the longest time that people don't have the right to good internet. I'm serious. They said this.
I also heard the excuse, "Oh, America is such a big country; it's not possible to."
Yeah,
give
it's not possible. And keep in mind that whenever they say this, they're just saying it because a study hasn't come out proving them wrong yet. Because that's how that's a common misconception of how the burden of proof goes. Is how they think it works is you make a claim and the onus is on other people to prove you wrong. Mm-hmm. They think that's how that works. I mean, the reality is you have to have evidence to make a claim. For instance, there is God. Well, in reality, you have to have evidence. So,
yes.
But we have to, for some reason, prove that there is no God, instead of them having to prove there is. Let's transfer this to gaming. Is multiplayer is less fun than single player? Let's spout that. They're just stating it as a fact that it's more fun to play a single player game. And they're not and for some reason we have to prove all of these reasons why multiplayer is, let's just say, as fun. Mm-hmm. I mean, I used to be far more hardline on this. Now I'm just kind of like, if you can just have both, I'm happy. Stop fighting, mommy, daddy. Is for some reason we have to prove, without a matter of doubt, that you're wrong, instead of you having to prove why you're right, even though that's how it's supposed to work. And I'm serious. I looked this shit up. This is just how that philosophical point works.
Extraordinary claim require extraordinary evidence.
Yeah, and then there's the extraordinary claim requires extraordinary evidence. I remember I was talking to one of my friends about this. I was like, well, burden of proof. You have to actually prove what you're saying. It's like, well, no, the burden of proof's on you. I'm like, nope. It's not quite how that works. So they're making this claim. They're making this claim that because they have to look at multiple websites for feedback, that it's suddenly really hard to decide what to accept.
As feedback. Basically, it's not enough for me to tell you your game sucks.
Right.
I have to register with you. I have to give you my credentials. I have to basically sell my soul to you and basically sign up for whatever fucking
for instance,
ULA that you have in order to give that feedback to even get to you, just so that you can say, oh, that's a bad feedback, sorry.
Yeah, because their stance is essentially that unless you appeal to what we want in feedback, we're gonna just label it as bad feedback. For instance, their gamers are making the claim that this game isn't up to par as a AAA title. Now, and they're stating the actual evidence of these models aren't up to par. These
character animations,
these character animations aren't up to par. So, and instead of going, oh well, you have cited evidence with your claim, we will look at your feedback. They're going, well, we don't like your evidence, so the burden of proof is on you. So
we don't like your attitude.
Sorry.
Yeah. I also the thing with BioWare especially is that
BioWare, what the fuck happened?
Yeah, ever since the ending of Mass Effect 3 and their artistic integrity,
this
or
specifically happened
vision
around number 3, because up until that they seemed to be doing fine.
Yeah, but as soon as the ending of Mass Effect 3 hit on the production line, somewhere there, the BioWare went from a 5-star restaurant to a hot dog booth.
Right.
What the fuck happened in that period? And they stayed there. They are completely oblivious to the fact that they are not producing a content that is up to par with the standard that they set for themselves.
Yeah,
I remember one of the developers saying in one of the interviews when the gamers had the audacity to create a campaign to take back the Mass Effect 3 ending, that he basically called gamers entitled. He called them. He said that they know anything about game productions, so they should shut up, and they have no right of changing the Mass Effect because that's not their product, and that the entire team worked and has this artistic vision towards the
They're
end.
basically
That's how it should
saying,
be.
unless you've been paid to be a game designer and you have a AAA credit, your opinion doesn't mean dick, which is ridiculous. Yeah. The average gamer has played at least half of all. Well, let's be more generous. Let's say a quarter of all AAA titles.
Yeah, there's not that much of them coming every day. AAA multi-million-dollar titles. So
so players know what to expect out of a AAA title. It's not like people are that stupid. I mean, I feel like...
And it's not all on the expectations either, because before the game was even released, they said, oh, we are not going to make you give you a button that will give you 3 endings, like in Deus Ex, right?
Yeah.
That will be generated from all the decisions that you've made. Bullshit!
Right. Well, it's funny. The Rockstar made the same claim with their GTA games. The last couple ones is, your choices matter and all that shit. But in reality, it's like, do I kill him? Do I save him? Do I kill him? Do I save him? They said the same thing in BioShock 2. Is choices, and of course it was just good ending, bad ending, and it goes on and on. Whenever they say choices, it's a code word because they make it sound all flowery, but from a coding perspective, it's A or B.
True. However, when choices are on the menu, right? Think about Fallout 2 and Fallout 1.
Yes.
You play those games, you go through all of those different quests, and you look for shit and do stuff. And then at the end...
Yeah, at the very end of the game.
Yes, the game basically generates an ending for you that shows how your actions affected the world.
Yeah, instead of one black and white ending, it's a stitch of them. It's depending on who's dead and alive at the end of the game, different stuff happens.
In terms of Mass Effect 3, you got the red ending, the blue ending, and the green ending.
Yeah,
red, green,
where
and blue.
Fallout 1 gave you red, blue, and green, black and white for like 7 to 8 different things.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, there's like a fat tyrant guy in one of the towns that you're supposed to, that you can kill, and you pretty much always, that's a good thing. Like, killing him always gives you a kind of good ending there.
Good karma, yeah.
Yeah. That sort of thing. Unfortunately, through bugs, both of the original Fallout games have good and bad endings for specific things, but because of one bug or another, they only can be resolved one way. Like the death clause. That's a whole other discussion.
Yeah. But returning to BioWare. I don't really believe that they are incapable of actually doing something like that in the present day technology. They are a multi-million-dollar company. They have the backing of the EA. They are capable of pulling this off. But either due to bad management...
I don't know why it's so hard for them.
Well, from what I know, that at least from the animation standpoint, they subcontracted a lot of other companies to make those.
Yeah.
They, in terms of dialogue-heavy games, you kind of use... I don't know, have you ever used MIDI device like MIDI keyboard? That's basically what they're doing with facial animations. They're basically assigning few different facial animations and then pumper it up with additional kind of movements. And all those play like on a track, right? And what they're blaming most of the animation failure on is the fact that they didn't really have the time to polish it up before the release. So most of the animations that you see are the effect of auto-generator that was not later up polished by the animation department, because they simply didn't have the time to do that. So they only focus on the key scenes and the ones that are most cinematic, most important.
Yeah.
So that's mostly the reason why you have, I believe it's the Rider now.
So the other thing I want to make fun of them for before we move on is their alien design. Now in this interview, there's a blurb where he says that he wanted to recreate the first game. And then he later says that he based the alien design from on Gene Roddenberry's style of just slapping an actor in different makeup and calling him an alien. And so I then noticed that every single alien in the new Mass Effect games is just a humanoid model that has been a little fucked up and made a little more specialized, and then it's always based on something. Like, oh, this race is based on the Romans, this race is based on that, this race is based on that. Just total hackwork design. Like, oh, wow.
In terms of Star Trek and Gene Roddenberry's idea that you basically put a human actor with a green skin or yellow skin or glitter skin on, it makes sense to do that because you're on a tight budget, you are on a you have to work with actors, real people, you have to make costumes for them, so that you of course you have to cheapen out on the costume, on the set.
Cheap, and they went, hey,
exactly.
It's far cheaper for us to just hire some really good makeup artists instead of having to go the Jim Henson route and just make puppets for everything.
Yes, but in video game world, you do not deal with actors. You can basically make people on wheels. You can make spider people that are actual spiders.
And keeping up with how much the first Mass Effect completely dismissed the Gene Roddenberry method. We have the Krogans, who, they look humanoid-ish, but they look fairly unique. They're big. They have a different gait to them.
In terms of humanoid features, yes, they have a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. But they also have 4 balls.
Right, because that's so important.
Well, in the role, every major organ has basically a backup in their biology. That's the reason
that's
why.
true. Yeah, it's so they can just keep fighting.
But there are the squid people, right?
Yeah, they're the like Hadar or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
There's the big old quadrupedal things. There are so many odd.
Yeah, there are those guys that live
creatures.
in high pressure environments.
Yeah, those guys.
Those midgets kind of guys. Yeah, they are awesome.
Yeah, and so you have all of these races, and then this guy comes in going, oh well, and Gene Roddenberry, we have to go this route because this is the route we're going, and I'm going, holy, why? And
at least in Star Trek they had they try to shove in an explanation that they are all descendants of the same gene pool.
It's supposed to be like there was this genetic ancestor or something. It was essentially the Adam Eve thing.
And they all basically in this episode they basically wave their hand at it and say, "No, fuck that." And they basically, I'm not related to that fucker. No, fuck this.
Yeah.
They basically treated it as a joke, but there is no reason to do that in Mass Effect world.
Yeah, that's true. It's completely true. I don't know why they keep going that route. I don't know why. They make this
it's
claim.
their artistic vision.
Yeah, it's their artistic vision of recreating other people's work.
Yes, pretty much.
Because that's what the entire interview was. That seemed to be his excuse for everything. Is we're making it like this. We're trying to copy that.
Yes,
but it's artistic vision. Don't fuck with artistic vision.
Oh, don't you look my art? It's a turd on a plate. It's like
that
4chan.
It's like that 4chan
destructive
meme.
nature of the consumerism.
I just figured it out. It's like that 4chan meme. Original character, do not steal.
Yeah, pretty much.
Is they're flopping down their Gene Roddenberry aliens, and they're like, look how original these Gene Roddenberry aliens are. Do not steal. Alright, so, on to answers nobody wanted.
Oh, I don't really want those questions. Or answers.
Indeed.
Because nobody wants them.
Nobody wants them. All 0 of our viewers who just turned us off.
So, what do we have for the first one?
Multiclassing is this guy Basic Bro Evan is saying, I've always disliked multiclassing. To me, I've been taking English classes, so now I'm just going, oh wow, I'm reading shitty papers. To me, should have a comma. Or no, to me, a player who multiclass. Oh wow, that's all fucking fragmented. Anyways, to me, a player who multiclasses is someone who wants to wear heavy armor or sneak while casting OP spells. Well, yeah. I hate this shit. I hated that shit back in 3.5.
Mm-hmm.
There was this card game that was based on 3.5 that I played for like a minute. It was an indie card game. You made your character out of the cards you had, and you picked your class, and that determined what cards you could use, and it wasn't designed very well, so every class's deck basically looked the same. so every class always had the same cards. It was kind of sad. However, they made it so there was no penalty for spellcasting classes to wear the best cards as armor, because it was all collectible cards. So if you didn't get a bunch of heavy armor cards, then you were fucked. And so I played a tournament. My first exposure was playing a tournament, and I was fighting a warlock in heavy armor, and it was total bullshit. I could not hit him, and yet he could just keep blasting me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of issue I have with multiclassing. I remember whenever I was playing with people in 3.5, they'd always say, "Oh, I'm a warlock, barbarian, bard," or "I'm this, that, and the other." And I'm like, why are you doing this? Because in 3.5, how it's supposed to work is it fucks up how much XP you get. However, what you can take instead is a prestige class, and you can take that and it will not mess up your XP gains. And that that just lets you do the same thing, but with specific classes.
Mm-hmm. Because basically, what happened with the prestige classes?
There
for
were
example, let's say that
entire books of them.
Yeah. For example, you the way you create a character, right? You create a character. It's level 1.
Yes.
It has
like a level 1 fighter.
max. In 3.5, max level is what?
20.
20. Okay.
Well, it's theoretically 20, but there were epic rule sets that let you go up to 30.
Yeah. So let's say that basic set it's 20. So you level up from 0 to 8, and then you have an up to 8. I believe it's prestige class starts at, or 10. It was 8 or 10.
It's like 8.
So long ago.
I think it's 8.
Yeah, so you level up to level 8, and then the prestige class kind of, it says that it's level 1, but it's actually its power level, quote unquote, is level 8, right?
Yeah.
And then it can go up from there. That's the reason.
And then it gets stronger, yeah.
And it also can have like 20 levels. So
yeah, and they can have
in total 28,
up to 10,
right?
Up to 10 levels. And you can take multiple prestige classes, and those all have different levels. And so you can very quickly have a character that just keeps always gaining classes and levels and shit.
Sadly, not all... how is it called? Not all... quests? No. Not all campaigns lasted that long. So that's a saving grace there. Yeah,
but the general point was... you could just take a ton of multi-classes in 3.5.
Yeah.
And it made the game less fun because people were just trying to be everything.
Well, the way I look at this is multi-classing allows for you to optimize your character.
Yeah, they always use that as an excuse. I'm optimizing. Why am I not allowed to optimize my character? Shouldn't I be allowed to get everything out of my character?
Well, the point is, the point of optimizing is, you create a character that fits your playstyle.
Yes.
And the general gist of it is, the more you multi-class, the less you can specialize. So either you can have a character that is spread out and that is somewhat useful in every situation, or you can have a character that is very specialized in one direction. For example, completely specialized in magic, and that makes him a very powerful mage. The downside to it, it's very difficult to compensate that in terms of mechanics, because some player somewhere is going to find a fucking loophole in a rule somewhere, and will use it to basically break the entire thing.
Correct. And that was super easy to do in 3.5. For instance, in one game, I played as a Velociraptor Steamborg. And the GM allowed me to be the druid companion of the druid. Mm-hmm. And in 3.5, druid companions are are a template that you add to an existing creature. So at level 1, I had like 100 hit points.
Ooh, that's a lot for 3.5 on level 1.
Yeah,
that's a shit ton.
Because it gave me level adjustment and extra hit points for being a Velociraptor. Gave me hit points and level adjustment for being a Druid Companion. And so I was just a total monster.
Well, you were a Velociraptor, right?
Yes, who was cybernetically, steametically enhanced.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm sure that you had plenty of role-playing opportunities with.
It basically was all my role playing was me looking at things and deciding whether or not I could fight it. is my shtick is I basically had the scanner from DBZ only instead of power level it was like I called it combat rating, and my whole character was based around fighting things that were worthy to its power rating. So like I look at the people around me. Does anyone have a high combat rating? No, they're about regular people. Whatever. I just pass them. Filthy casuals.
I will. Will you eat that? No. No. That's a child. You don't eat that. I will eat that.
Yeah, like I wasn't evil. I was just really strong.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, so to boil down the answer to the how do we feel about multiclassing?
I want to also talk about 5e real quick, because 5e.
Okay, go for it.
Is everyone still wants to multiclass in 5e? They want to multiclass heavily, and they will notice that multiclassing got nerfed. And the reason for this is because the game is already written to multiclass. Every archetype dabbles a little bit into another class. Every background dabbles a little bit into another class. Every class and character is designed in a way to do several things instead of just do one thing really well.
Yes, for example, that actually reminds me of something. Conan the Barbarian. That character was, as the name suggests, a barbarian, right?
Yes.
But he did a lot of sneaking. He dabbled in magic, even though he hated magic.
Yeah.
So he was stealing stuff. He was outwitting people, using his intelligence, not only his brute force. So he was also a multiclasser.
And in 5e that would be represented from having a very diverse background, from having an archetype that kind of fits what he does. And like for instance, there's a feat that lets you cast cantrips. Like he like to represent that. He'd probably have that. That sort of thing. And so it's much easier to just out the gate have a diverse personality and character, and especially because a lot of people go on to Reddit to ask, can I recreate this? Like, I gave a guy shit the other day for saying, how do I recreate Reinhardt? And I'm like, oh, come on, dude.
Why would you want to recreate it? You're not Lionheart. Recreate yourself. Recreate your own.
I don't get it. Why do we have to play characters from other games in other games?
To be fair, that's a good idea for people who are just starting, who do not know what they really like.
Yeah.
So I'm okay if you are first or second time player. But if this is your fifth or sixth character, you have no excuse.
So, keeping with this on specialization and all in the 5e argument, is this guy Tolman says there's no addition specified. That being said, I couldn't disagree with you more. Multiclassing is one very cool way of fleshing out characters. A former soldier who found religion as a way of coping with events of war could be a fighter, cleric, paladin multiclass. It's a cool feature. Now, here's why he's wrong.
From the roleplay perspective, that makes sense.
From the roleplay
perspective.
From the reality, if a person suddenly becomes religious, they don't necessarily become a cleric. Once again, a cleric is an adventurer who is deeply attuned with God, so much so in 3.5 that they ask them for spells and they get them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's a core part of being a cleric and paladin. We talked about like a month ago about the paladin thing. It's not so much anymore, but either way, is this other guy, and for some reason they downvoted the shit out of this guy. Is he says, or a cleric with the soldier background, or a regular fighter who happens to be deeply religious. Class does not equal personality, and I agree with that dude, because a lot of people think that if you become religious, you're suddenly a cleric. Or if you pick up a bow, you're suddenly a ranger, even though that's not what ranger means.
It's almost like saying, if you're a Catholic priest, you automatically become a pedophile.
Yeah, except that's true. But... So, I don't agree with the stance that... because we can do it this way, we should do it this way. It feels really brute forcey to just take a multi-class and go, this represents a new aspect of my personality. Even though that is not how that works. Like this dude says, class does not equal personality. That's why they changed 5e so much. That's why they changed specialization so much, because they noticed this. This is what their way of saying this.
Your personality, it does not equal your class. You have to have a certain type of personality to become a certain class. I agree with that. But I don't
not necessarily. That's the idea of the whole background system. For instance, rogues. There's the tried and true stereotypical sneaky slashy rogue. However, now with all the archetypes that came out on Earth Arcana, Sword Coast, there's the wine swilling back row mastermind rogue. There's the archer rogue. There's the tried and true thief rogue. There are way more ways to be a rogue without being that one specific stereotype.
I completely agree. However, in order to be a rogue, I think that you have to be a person who's willing to do something bad in order to for a good cause, right?
Oh yeah, well that's part of being a rogue. Is you're always walking a fine line.
Yes, and if you want to be a paladin, you have this feeling of, or rather, there's this pressure for you to always do things by the book, because they are kind of entrenched in your mind. You have to be a soldier, you have to be a drone in order to become a paladin. And I agree with the fact that class does not define your character, but you have to have a certain traits in your character to be compatible with different kinds of classes. For example, a certain PC, let's say that is pre-class, right? It has a certain personality set for them by the player, and that locks some classes for them, but opens another ones.
Yeah.
Right?
And okay. The other part is just breaking the mold. And there's this other guy, TK337, who puts this kind of big example out. But he says multiclassing is kind of the opposite. You're weakening yourself. And 3.5, that was actually fairly true. You start to lose out on some of the best class features if you multi-class, and people just didn't understand this.
Yeah, that was the point of multiclassing, to spread your character. The more you multiclass, the more versatile you're becoming, but at the cost of being more powerful.
Yes.
So, as if you multiclass a lot during your character leveling scheme, you're going to find yourself being unable to keep up damage-wise or roll-wise with your fellow player characters who specialize. However, you will find that you are able to be beneficial in more situations.
Right.
That's the point of having multiclass, to be versatile, to be jack of all trades but master of none.
I don't know, the game 5e as it's designed already accounts for that, though. And I mean,
yes.
that's my argument to it, because I feel like 5e's designed itself in a way that makes up for this. The feat system as it is now, the archetype system, pretty much replaces multi-classing for me.
Yeah, that's but that's a different system, right? It's not 3.5, right?
Well, that's 5e,
yeah. That's basically what I'm saying, because I'm still sitting in the 3.5 because that's what I'm most familiar with.
Mm.
So, is that
we
all
have
for the questions?
One more. Don't
no.
tell your players no. Tell them to roll for it. Yeah.
So,
Christian.
So Necro, can I jump out of this window, Necro? Can I throw away the trash? Can I kick this guy's ass?
What are you talking about?
I'm just acting as a player who would ask questions to a DM that you are.
Oh yeah. So here's the thing: is I've been noticing this as more and more people join the hobby, that they like to turn to the GM and ask a yes or no question. And as a GM,
can I throw away the crush?
Yeah, can I do this? Can I do that? Am I allowed to do this? And that's not quite how this works.
Mm-hmm.
Because
this basically stems from the lack of understanding for the medium, right?
Yes, and it's completely understandable why this is a common misconception, because it's really, really hard to recognize that instead of that you are the miniature on the field. The miniature doesn't represent what you can do. The miniature is
sometimes you don't even have miniatures. Sometimes you just have
sometimes you don't even
imagination.
But the point being is that it's not as cut and dry as you have this set allowed of actions you're allowed to do. That's only in combat.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a theme in the writing, is you see what you can see is what you get. If there's a door, you can mess with the door. If there's a window, you can mess with the window. If there's a cabinet, go mess with the cabinet. And a lot of people are used to looking at something, rolling, and seeing if something good happens. Mm-hmm. Because that's how it works in video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so they don't really use a lot of imagination in what they're doing, because they're assuming that this is this is like an old adventure game where noun plus verb equals result.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's there's a lot of truth in what you're saying, and basically, the general idea in Dungeons and Dragons, in all pen and paper games, is that they are basically the way of achieving virtual reality without actually having virtual reality, right?
Yeah, this is a theme that was back in the 60s. Like, we're playing it like a combat game.
You're supposed to close your eyes. Yeah.
But we're there. Yeah.
You're supposed to close your eyes and imagine yourself there and let the DM, with his descriptions, with his voice, transport you to this world and sync you up with other players.
And this is why I give 4E so much shit, because it's not that roleplay EE.
Yeah, it's much more of a card game than...
Yeah, it's more of a war game than an actual... And people always go, well, isn't D&D already like a war game? I went, what war games have you played? Well, I play D&D, duh. Oh, you stupid mother... Anywho,
yeah, there's a little bit of a difference.
Slightly, you know.
A lot. It's the same difference as between StarCraft, actually no, it's the same difference as between Warcraft and Diablo 3. I would say.
Yeah, quite different breeds. So the proper the proper way to do anything in D&D is dice rolls occur when there's an element of random nature. Like when you're trying to push or pull something, when you're trying to attack someone, when there might be something in there might not be something in there, that sort of thing.
Yes, basically the dice are how the environment responds to your actions, to your decisions.
Yes.
If you decide to open a cabinet, you have to roll to basically open it. If you roll, for example, 1, let's say you're a thief, you roll 1. Well, what happens for a skilled thief to fail ability to open a cabinet, right?
Yeah. Like, because part of it is you have to give the GM ammo. You have to give the GM some kind of basis of how you are moving in the environment.
Yes, as much as the DM is responsible for describing to you the situation, you are, as a player, responsible for describing to the DM what you're doing, what you're feeling, what your attitude is, and acting out the role of your character.
Yeah.
It's a lot. The D&D all pen and paper games have a lot to. They are very much tied to the act of theater, to be an actor on a scene and playing a character that and that character has no script. That player has no script.
Right.
So they have to improvise and they have to think on their feet, and it's a skill of mind to actually get there, describe it, act it out, and that actually can translate to a lot of bonuses that Dungeon Master can reward to a player that
absolutely, because details can make a huge difference. And so this guy's saying don't tell your players no, tell them to roll for it, as in use dice how they're supposed to be used. Use them to represent chance, to represent possibility, because once again, that's what they're supposed to represent. And for instance, when people are like investigating things and they say a specific area that they're investigating and they roll for it, they're more or less rolling to see if there's something in there more on do they see what's in there.
Yes, the roll does not make a magical item appear. It's the fact whether the item is already there or not, right?
Yes.
The roll can only determine whether you are capable of finding it. If there is nothing there, then, as the saying goes, from an empty even salmon doesn't pour, right?
Wait, one more time?
I translated it from Polish. It basically says.
Oh, it's a Polish saying. Please please.
It's more of a Jewish thing, I think.
Oh.
It's basically refers to the King Solomon, one of the wisest men on whoever lived on the planet, and the saying basically says that from an empty container, right? Nothing is going to pour, no matter how wise or powerful you are.
Unless you're Jesus.
No, actually, even Jesus needed water to change into wine. It wasn't empty.
Well, give him a few brewskis and that jug will be full in no time. But, water, wink, wink, into wine.
Yes.
That can't be healthy.
I would like Jesus to turn flour into cocaine.
Well, that's why they couldn't keep him locked up for eternity, because he'd just keep peeing and drinking wine. Loophole! So, the point here is that as a player, what you're trying to do is pose a situation to your DM. For instance, DM Christian, I want to get I'm gonna get on my knees in front of the safe. I'm gonna pull out my thieves' tools. Gonna start picking this safe. I'm right in front of the safe and I'm messing with it. So that's a lot of information. There's a lot that can go wrong or right there. Converse to...
And I, for example, as a DM can say, oh, you kneel before the safe and you press your cheek against its cold surface. You press your ear to hear the insides of it. You mess about with your thieves' tools and hear a click. But the safe does not open.
Indeed, and on the converse, I roll to pick the safe. No information there, and it's
much less fun.
It's more complicated than it's the wrong way. Because I don't want to sound pretentious to go, oh, you have to play a certain way. No, it's just, by the way, this is just kind of reinforced in the rules themselves. Is a lot of rules the rules themselves state that you're supposed to be more specific about what you're doing.
Yeah, and as I said, it's much more fun for everyone involved if the players actually...
It's more engaging.
Explain. It's more engaging. It's more difficult. I will give that. I am guilty of the fact that I just say, oh, we're doing this or this, and I'm not getting into the character, which I know I should do more. I do recognize that it's difficult to come up on the spot with those flowery descriptions, but they give the game so much more life.
Like in Shadowrun the other day, I made fun of made fun of Krusty because he was like, okay, I go talk to the Mr. Johnson. I was like, how? I did. I love DMing Shadowrun because it's like being Mr. Popo in DBZ Abridged. Like, just putting them in a secure facility, and people are like, so where did you send that Shadowrunner team? I can tell you where they're not. Safe.
Oh, yeah. I love the DBZ, the Team 4-star period. They are awesome. It's a shame that they were hit with some sort of DMCA. All of the DBZ abridged videos are off the YouTube.
Oh, no shit!
Yeah. They are still available on their website, though. So.
Oh, wow. I was wondering how long that would go. Well, it's because they were getting ad revenue off it, weren't they?
I don't think so.
Huh. Oh, well, that's not specifically gaming. Let's not worry about that on here. But
well, Mr. Popo doesn't need the invitation.
Yeah, Mr. Pope was just allowed to come and stay, but the actual topic of real things that happened to Team 4-star, apparently, who gives a shit? Meanwhile, they're just sitting in their bathtubs going, how could this happen to me? As a player, it's more engaging for you to be told yes and that's just improv 101. Yes and. Don't say no.
Mm-hmm.
Is if something is happening differently in your head, go yes and. Because that way you're not making the other person feel like all of their thinking was in vain. Because a lot of people are putting a lot of thought into their plans before they say it, even if they're not.
Like the last Shadowrun session.
Like...
Right, let's see how we're going to fuck up our little plan.
Oh, you guys did enough planning to get into the facility, so that's good.
Yeah, but we can still fuck it up royally.
Oh, left and right.
Oh yeah. That's part of the fun.
So that reminds me, as an example,
Mm-hmm.
I foreshadowed it, but whether or not the guy spoke Russian, I foreshadowed that he may or may not. You guys planned for the chance that he didn't.
Yeah.
And I went whether or not then instead of saying yes or no, I let the dice handle it. I rolled a d10 and I got a 10, and I thought, does that mean he does or he doesn't? And then you said, well, yeah, that kind of means he does. I thought about it and went, yeah, he does.
Mm-hmm.
And that was an example of yes and is I went, well, I'm going to roll the dice and then determine arbitrarily whether or not this happens.
Not only he speaks Russian, he speaks it fluently.
But yeah, he knew Russian. No phrase book for this guy.
Oh yeah, all his bibbidi bops and popty boops were perfect Russian. I can tell.
For some reason, all I could think of afterwards was, "Я машина! I am the machine."
Yes.
"Я машина." "Я машина!"
Yes.
Good story.
Nagasaki. Moonspeak.
That was, I was supposed to be Russian, unless I fucked it up.
Well, I don't know. I don't speak Russian.
Some commie you are.
Hey, I'm Polish. We all know that I'm Polish. This is a character, right? Fucking, I'm drinking Coca-Cola right now. How communist is that?
Well, it is a red can.
Yeah, I remember that joke when Russians went to the moon, painted all red, and saying, "Oh, we won. The moon is now the the representation of communist thought." And
All
then
I can
Americans
think of
went
is
there
a
and
bunch of
painted in Coca-Cola.
cosmonauts. A bunch of cosmonauts just with giant, oversized paint rollers, just very slowly working over the moon in red.
Yeah, and then Americans went over there and fucked it up by writing Coca-Cola on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the bottom line is, don't say no.
Yeah, don't say no. Reagan was full of shit.
Well, if your players are asking you questions and not telling you what they're doing, that basically means that they need a little bit more immersion therapy. And that, or you're not describing the situation well enough. The point is for the player to basically close their eyes and see the situation they're in, and that already makes them know what they're doing.
Well, yeah, it helps on both sides, because as a GM, if anything goes wrong, I know how it affects you. And when something goes wrong, I can point and go, you said you were doing that. You can't say you weren't. Because that's what people tend to need. That's why the rules. That's why the rules exist, where you have to now. Because in 3.5, there were a bunch of people that they'd roll, and then I'd say something bad would happen, and they go, "But I wasn't doing that."
Yeah.
Or even worse, the dreaded, "Okay, I'm not doing that." I went, "No, fuck you. You rolled."
I'm the only times when a player should ask GM any questions about what they're doing is questions that are relating to the environment.
Yeah.
Do I see any sticks around? Do I see any pebbles or stones around that I can throw? Do I is the place dusty so I can throw it into the eyes of the enemy? Are there any clues in this room? Or more specific, do I see any CDs or parchments?
Yeah, like
or
I played Out of the Abyss with my friends in
You don't have friends.
Here.
I know you're lying.
Okay, they were sex dolls.
Better.
Who I've named and grown attached to. They were doing it right. They were going, okay, well, I'm going to roll investigation because I'm checking the like stones of this pen to see if there's anything that's been like hidden. I went, oh, correct. Okay, roll for it.
That, you know what? You need to hook me up with your sex doll provider because these are some very good dolls.
Only the best.
Mm-hmm.
America.
Of course, America.
Absolutely, because it's really hard as a GM to improv when it comes to, can I do this, can I do that? Well, physically you can, because I feel like they're asking, they're trying to get me to tell them the pros and cons of doing it. And that's not...
Instead of thinking on their own.
Instead of thinking on their own about how it would affect them. And the thing is I got teased out of that thinking a long time ago because I used to play World of Darkness. And when you're playing World of Darkness, you are not allowed to ask the GM for any fucking help whatsoever because they're not going to tell you.
Yep.
Same in Paranoia. They will not... In fact, if you ask them, the whole book tells them to lie to you.
That's interesting.
Like every time it says if the players ask this, it either tells you to ensure them that it's perfectly safe, to make a lie, or to purposely redact the most important information in the sentence. or just not listen to them entirely and say it's above their clearance.
I see. That's very interesting.
So there are games where you are absolutely not allowed to ask the GM for information because it's in the rules. And then I went back to D&D and I just kind of kept that because I felt like it was more useful.
Well, it makes sense because as I said, the only information that a player should be inquiring about is the environment.
Right.
Everything else, anything else is the player telling what they're doing and describing what they're feeling. Because the DM is not privy to that information, and in order to construct a convincing scene, they need that.
Indeed. And that's even more in Paranoia, because even though it does have rules, you as a player are not actually allowed to know them. And it's assumed that after a while you're going to figure it out, but you're not allowed to tell each other what the rules are.
Mm-hmm.
And knowledge of the rules is above your clearance.
Pretty much.
So that game is completely reliant on the players being good improvers.
As we said before, D&D has roots in theater of improvisation.
Yes.
You are an actor that doesn't have a script, that is supposed to portray a character, and whatever happens to that character is decided by their actions and the roll of the die. And whatever the director of the play, which is the DM, tells you that is happening.
I agree. Well, that seems to be all we have today.
Impossible! So quickly?
So quickly.
We're not going to spend 2 more hours discussing bullshit?
I mean, we can always talk non-stop about every single new game that's been announced.
I am not prepared for this.
I don't think anyone is. Oh boy.
Anywho,
all right.
Thank you everyone for listening. It was a true joy to have you. Yeah, that's the show.
It was fantastic.